I reckon.
Yeah.
But I would recommend anyone do this if they end up in the same predicament as me. Pour the tiniest amount so you can not have the FOMO and then save them all for later. This is my strategy anyway.
It was a strategy I didn't use for our birthday box because I had a cold. It wasn't COVID, but I really was struggling to smell and taste. And I have to say it was I should have saved some of that to get it better. But I did have a great bottle of the Aberfoyles at home. So.
Oh my gosh, yes. Wasn't that a fun dram? And wasn't that a fun tasting the last one we had where we made cocktails?
It was. We did. And I thank you everybody who voted for me as the best cocktail. Wise decision, everybody. It was the best cocktail.
I was robbed. What you didn't see was the behind the scenes afterwards of Andy frantically remaking his cocktail because it wasn't good enough.
It was the competitive edge in me. Unfortunately, I took a very, very bad photo during the tasting, and I felt it would be unfair to have that photo up against Christie's photo. But I took it as if I didn't cheat. Okay,
I didn't cheat.
Fair and square. I won fair and square. Thank you, all pour and sippers who voted for me.
The gentleman doth protest too much, I feel.
Yes.
But yes, there we go. And Instagram versus reality and all that jazz. Fun and games, fun and games.
That just proves it, doesn't it? That literally just proves the Instagram is not reality.
It really does. But on to today. We have got a whole new month, which means a whole new box. I mean, September was wonderful, have my box here, but we have got 5 brand new drams, which I'm so excited about. And of course, a huge welcome to you if this is your first pour and sip tasting.
Woo, welcome. Enjoy. Remember to make sure you join in the tasting notes. Let us know your thoughts, your opinions, your questions, whatever you want to ask. No questions too stupid. Whatever you're tasting is, it's all subjective. There are no right or wrong answers. So please get involved.
Yeah, 100%. So these are your tastings. We absolutely love them, but I feel like we are here almost as like your mouthpieces, really. So we get to put your questions to our guests, and we have got 3 guests tonight, which is so exciting, an action-packed evening. So we're here basically in celebration of the whiskey. So enjoy it. Tell us your tasting notes. Ask us your questions. We'll read out as many comments as we can. And yeah, I really can't wait. This is going to be so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not going to come down after the birthday box was so good. We're just going to get better, and this is going to be just as good. So, let's move on. Should we start the evening?
Well, yeah, I think we should give the running order first. So, of the 5 drams in the box, also, if you are new, by the way, don't forget you have got 2 tasting glasses squirreled away underneath. So, we were tasting 3 drams tonight, but you've got your 2 glasses. So, cunning bit of rinse and repeat for one of them, but you've got this. I believe in you. We're going to kick off things with the Redwood Empire, which I have so many questions for. Jeff is going to join us from there, which I really can't wait for. This is going to be awesome. And then Andy, we're going to do a double act on the Craigellachie, right?
Yes, we are. Craigellachie. That's this one. I can't do this, honestly. It is just baffling with the left and right.
It's only been a year, Andy. It's only been a year. But yeah, so we have got Mike. He's going to come and talk to us about the Craigellachie 17, which is one of my all-time favourites. Hence why I'm saving quite a lot of it for afterwards, because I really want to get involved. And then Andy, we're over to you for the 3rd and final dram.
And we're doing Black Bottle, which is a nice peaty one. Hence why we are finishing with this one and not starting with it. So that should be a real treat for all you peat lovers.
Absolutely. And again, if you think you don't like American whiskey, you don't like peat, I would just say come with an open mind, because we're going to taste, we're going to explore, we're going to get stuck in. Well, and also, I really need your tasting notes tonight because I clearly can't taste. So I'm relying on you all to paint a picture for me.
We've changed many opinions over the course of the year with pour and sip with American whiskey and rye whiskey and peated whiskey. So I think we might be able to change a few more tonight. Ian Jambo Rain is congratulating you, Christy, for your opinion. It's absolutely well deserved. So congratulations to Christy, who in a couple of weeks will be possibly on the red carpet letting us.
Well, actually, this is a good thing. So we want to hear from you before we crack on, before we come to Jeff in about 60 seconds time. The IWSC evening clashes with the next pour and sip, which is a travesty and a tragedy. But I've had the slightly bonkers idea of potentially joining live from the event. So if that's what you want to see, let us know. If you'd rather just have your whiskey tasting in peace, let us know that as well.
Yeah. I thought you were going to do a Johnny Depp and just not show up to the award ceremony. No.
I know. I was torn, genuinely torn. But on to the actual whiskey, because this is what we're here for. Let's see if we can bring Jeff in, all the way from California. Hi, Jeff. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm great.
Hey, California.
It's still morning here.
So what time is it? I'm not great at calculating.
It is 11:30 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a good time for some bourbon, I think.
Yeah.
Breakfast. Breakfast.
Ready to go.
Breakfast bourbon, yes.
Yes.
Fabulous. So, Andy, we're going to say bye to you briefly, but we'll catch up with you again in a bit. Don't go anywhere. We need you.
I'm not going. Enjoy, guys.
Speak to you soon. Amazing. So, Jeff, first of all, because I have a lot of questions and I am pretty sure that everybody else is going to have questions for you too, because this is kind of like a new name on the whiskey scene, right? But before we get stuck into the distillery, tell us a bit about you. What's your background? And tell us about, your career in whiskey.
Sure. First of all, super privileged, honored to be here. As we were chatting a little bit earlier, we just have launched our whiskeys in the UK, first out of US country. So excited to be in your neck of the woods. And we'll be hopefully having some friends that get to try it. They've been asking about it for the last couple of years. So it really is, I don't know, it's like a really coming of age when we actually get to export over to really the birthplace of all things great in whiskey. So very happy to be here and to be over in the UK.
Well, it's amazing to have you on screen with us and to have the whiskey physically here with us. And the fact that it's so new here is just an added thrill, because I was thinking to myself, I've not really come across Redwood before. And this is why, because I physically could not have done.
Yeah, so we're pretty young on the market. We started the distillery in 2015. So just had our 6-year anniversary. We speed things up a little more here in the US, and our whiskeys get to market a little faster than a lot of scotches you see. So 6 years for us is really, we're pretty well established, and we've now had our whiskeys out in the US for a couple years. And prior to that, we were just happily laying stuff down and working on mash bills and doing a little bit of experimentation on the side.
Amazing. So before I get stuck into this, because I have all the mash bill questions, what took you to join Redwood? What were you doing before? What's your whiskey background?
Yeah, great question. I have been with our parent company, which is Purple Brands. We are a wine and spirit company. I've been with the parent company for over a decade. Believe it or not, my background is in accounting. I am a finance guy by profession, although at heart, I truly believe I'm a maker, and I've always been. I've been brewing beer for as long as I could legally make beer, and probably a little bit before that. And love making things of all different nature. We're out here in Northern California, about a half hour from the ocean, very temperate climate. I have a nice big backyard. Love to grow stuff, love to make stuff. So I was accounting by day and making stuff by night. And our owner about 7 years ago wanted to branch out from wine to spirits. And I was allowed to kind of become part of that discussion, because he knew that I really had this passion for making stuff and loved beer, which of course is the raw material for all of our lovely whiskeys. So I was given an opportunity to really remap myself and start off on this amazing journey. And that was probably about 7 years ago. And I've done a lot of education out in the marketplace and here in the distillery since then. So rest assured, I have a pretty good idea what I'm doing now. And accounting does still come in handy from time to time. Lots of spreadsheets do still drive what we're doing here and there.
Well, I was going to say, I feel like if we're going to get onto mash bills and recipes and, controlling distillation runs, all of this, you've got to keep track, and there's a lot of maths involved. But it's also pretty inspiring because, anyone who's watching this, or, anyone in general fancies a career change into the whiskey industry, there's going to be a place for you if you want to get involved.
Every once in a while, I have somebody come up to me and they're like, I'm in finance or I'm in this or that. And you've given me hope that I can reimagine myself into a new career. And yeah, so I'm in my mid-40s. This has been truly amazing to get to do what I've always enjoyed, throughout most of my life, and to do it as a profession. It's amazing. The homework is a heck of a lot better than staring at numbers.
Yeah. At the same time, I am going to raise a glass to all the finance professionals out there, because we need you in all walks of life. So you are appreciated.
Yeah, and I have a pretty good idea what our cost of goods are, and I'm never going to distill something that we ultimately can't find a home for someday. So there is some balance there that does come into play that I think is helpful. But the creativity part is, again, just so exciting for me. And every day is a new challenge and a new adventure.
Yeah, awesome. Now, tell us about Redwood Empire. So you were set up a few years back now. And yeah, how did it come about? And the name reminds me of trees, and I feel like trees are pretty close to your heart.
Trees are, yeah, I've got some trees behind us. Trees are a huge part of who we are. Historically, if you're out here in California, you've seen Redwood Empire. It's a very familiar term here in Northern California. And historically, it's this geographic area north of San Francisco, Golden Gate Bridge, all the way up to the Oregon coast. So it's this kind of Northern California rugged coastal atmosphere. And this is where all the redwood trees have grown for the last, several millennia. And unfortunately, a lot of them got cut down, but there are a fair amount still left. And we really want to protect those, pay homage to them, and really respect them. There's a old growth forest about a half an hour from the distillery. You walk in there, it's amazing. There's a tree in there that's 1,400 years old and several hundred feet tall. And when you go in these forests, they're very awe-inspiring, and it's a truly unique experience. So we really want to, that this is where we live. This is our home. We want to really pay homage to that. And so that's where our name comes from. And that's where each of our whiskeys, and we're going to talk about Pipe Dream today, that name, Pipe Dream, is actually named after a tree that's still living in one of these old growth redwood forests.
Oh, I love this. So we're literally celebrating one specific tree, which we could go and visit if we wanted to.
Yes, and actually on the front label of our bottle is the lat long of where that individual tree is. So you can put that on your iPhone and go find that tree.
Amazing. I've been lucky enough to visit Sonoma a couple of times in the past, but I am going to go, if I ever get to go again, which I hope I do, I'm going to go tree hunting. I'm going to go and take my map out, go and see what we can see.
Pipe Dream is a couple hours north of us, so you got to go a little bit farther north, but not too far.
Not too far. But, so tell us about Pipe Dream, the whiskey. So we know we can go visit Pipe Dream, the tree, and I have so many tasting notes coming in, so I'm going to get to them in a sec. But so we talked a little bit about mash bills. This is a bourbon. What makes this particular expression different and kind of an expression of what you guys do?
Sure. Pipe Dream is a blend of bourbons of different ages and from different states. And so this is from 4 different states. So it is a blend of bourbons, 4 years all the way up till now 14 years old. So it's this beautiful, rich blend of bourbons, and of course California, us, and then as well Kentucky, and then Indiana and Tennessee, which are some of the other large bourbon producing states. And so it's this great marriage of these different distillates from different states that just gives you this incredibly rich and complex blend.
That's awesome. You've actually preempted a question from one of our Pour and Sip regulars, Guy CP, asking about the distillery going since 2015, but some of these whiskies being between 4 and 12 years old. So this sourcing and this blending, is this going to be an ongoing part of strategy, or is it more while your own whiskies come of age?
It's a great question. And yes, it definitely will be a part of our strategy for the mid to probably long-term future. Our current still is a continuous column still. Does an amazing job. We've been running it hard since 2015, but really it only can produce about 20,000 9-liter cases of whiskey a year. And we're going to sell more of that whiskey this year in our second full year. So we kind of made this decision early on that we were going to go the route of being able to bring in these other distillates that were older, different states, to augment what we're making. And that just gives us a lot more to play with. I mean, personally, for me, my playground is amazing. We have over 12,000 barrels under our care. A little over 5,000 of those are what we've distilled in-house so far. And so we just have this incredibly rich environment in which to make these blends.
This is so fun. And I feel like this evening is going to be a bit of a celebration of the art of blending, because you guys are blending amazing bourbons. And we've got a blended Scotch later on. But I just want to read out some tasting notes before I get you to introduce us to the whiskey, because I mean, I am getting serious FOMO, and I cannot wait till I can enjoy this myself properly. So, Joe F, getting that smooth virgin oak with charcoal on the nose, hints of tea and that lovely syrupy scent. Jim Glancy, nose reminds me of old Jamaica chocolate. Anyone remember that? Stopped being made years ago. I don't, but I want some if it's going to taste like bourbon. Pesho agrees, loads of honey. Joe F, pepper is coming out the longer it's in the glass with some faint vanilla. Al Sutton, oak and popcorn on the nose. Ian Jambo Rain, another regular. Lovely sweet nose, getting the maple syrup. And now having a discussion with Mike Sutcliffe about the best additions to porridge. Now there's a thought. Bourbon and porridge, not a bad combo.
Not bad at all.
Not bad at all. Steve Coleman Williams, burnt sugar through the freshly cut grass with a hint of potter's clay. Good one. Mike picking up the alcohol a lot on the nose. It's one of those marker pens you were told not to sniff for kids. I love sniffing a marker pen, just going to say. Almost, who I think might be in, well, I've not seen your name before. Welcome, Almost. That corn percent is definitely playing a key role in the sweetness. Jeff, for me, very sweet honey, or Tate and Lyle golden syrup. Simon, hint of citrus. Joe, that orange and cinnamon spice on the palate, the pepper shining through and very smooth. This is a really nice dram. Jonathan B, silky smooth. Mike, there's definitely sweetness under the alcohol smell. Dan S says cherries, chocolate orange, and Jonathan simply says, wow, this is excellent. So there's a whole host of notes right there. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, everybody.
I love all that. That is amazing.
So great. So talk to us about the mash bill. How, of the different bourbons, can you give a vague approximation of what's going on?
Oh, yeah, for sure, yeah. So all the mash bills for the bourbons are relatively similar. So, of course, in our world, in order to be called a bourbon, you have to be at least 51% corn in the mash bill. These are going to range anywhere from 70 to 75% corn. And then our secondary grain for this bourbon is rye. You'll either see, rye is a secondary grain, or a lot of times you'll see wheat as well. And that wheat has become very, very popular because of Pappy and Weller and some other American brands that have really elevated that game. But this is going to be more rye. So that's where you are getting that 20% rye that's adding that level of spice and that black pepper and some of those really nice counterpoints to the delicate, smooth, rich sweetness of the corn. And then a touch of malt barley, somewhere probably around 5% would be making that out. So that's going to be, by and large, they're going to vary, a little bit between the different distilleries and mash bills. But that's kind of what you're looking at.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And I think we're going to have a little taste now, because I'm getting like a little bit of that rye spice on the nose, very slightly, but I know there's so much more there that everyone's enjoying. So cheers to you.
Cheers.
Oh my goodness. That texture is so smooth. And this is what is really weird right now about not being able to like taste or nose very much. The texture is even more important and heightened to me. And this just feels so smooth, even with that rye percentage.
Yeah, it's 90 proof for those of you out there that are tasting, maybe don't know. So, kind of puts us in that little higher alcohol content. But yeah, so smooth, so rich. I love the pop of the rye that you get up front, but the length of the bourbon, and especially these older stocks of bourbon, you start adding bourbon that's, 10 plus years old. And that's really where you get that beautiful length, that resonance that continues to coat the back of your tongue and just sticks with you over that nice period of time. And it makes my job so much easier to have these amazing components to blend with that just make for this richer, more complex, experience.
Yeah, that is so much fun. We've got even more comments coming in. So we've got a wave from Chloe saying fellow accountant here. Yes, love it.
Hey, there we go.
Niels wants a big shout out for the Redwoods in California, being there and it's fab. Ian is saying, following on from last time, this would make a great old fashioned in his opinion, which sounds like a great shout to me for sure. David, black pepper, caramel, malt orange and cinnamon. Mike saying about a pre-made old fashioned, you wouldn't need to add any bitters and I like it light on the sugar. Malcolm saying build bitter chocolate and some oak with spicy pepper. Steve Coleman Williams, definitely get the rye spice, thick walnut paste. That sounds so good. Charred orange and black pepper. Jonathan, I love this bourbon. It's great. And we've got another great question actually from Pesce this time. He's asking about sour mashing and fermentation. Like, can you tell us a bit, is there going to be some sour mashing going on in this?
Yeah, so we're definitely sour mashing here in the distillery. I believe the other distilleries involved are as well. It's a pretty common practice. It just allows us to keep our mashes consistent and also reduces our waste and reduces our need to add additional acidification through chemicals, whether it's some sort of citric acid or other type of acid that we have to add. So we add probably somewhere around 10% into each mash that we're adding this back set off the still that we've collected, and then we're adding it back to future mashes.
Yeah, so I guess just to explain that a little bit, it's sort of this residue that's left over at the bottom of the still that you can add back into the fermenter, right, to keep things quite consistent, like, makes for quite a good fermentation.
Yeah, I mean, once you're at the end of fermentation, unlike beer where it's pretty drinkable, most bourbon is pretty sour. It's in that 3.5% pH, so it's very low, very acidic mash, and so out the still, we can capture that. It really has relatively no alcohol because our still is very efficient at doing what we need to do. But it has this really nice acid level, and it's got some leftover dead yeast cells and other things that are going to make for a very happy fermentation. So it makes sense to capture it. It prevents us. It's a little bit less that goes into our pond that we have to treat and deal with. So it's a really nice kind of full circle thing.
Yeah, no, I love this. It's just such a joy to chat and get geeky about these things. So we've got some more comments, and then I'm going to ask you about some of your future plans. So Jeffster, I think I found a bourbon I actually like enough to buy a bottle. Great work. Tom Gillingwater, great balance, sweet and spicy, lovely. Rob Bester, caramelized orange and maple syrup really lingered on the palate though with peppery warmth. Oh, I can't wait to taste this properly. David, this is one of the best bourbons. I'm liking this one. Jim, excellent, smooth, perfection. There we go. That's a high compliment. And Ian Jambo Rain, best bourbon we've tasted so far in Pour and Sip. So this is getting good reviews. And then, I mean, people say what they think as well. I will say this about everyone when we chat. There's like, people don't mince their words. So this is awesome. So tell us a little bit about what's next from Redwood Empire. Like, what does the rest of your range look like? What are you hoping to do sort of next year and beyond? What kind of whiskies are you going to be making?
Yeah, great question. So we have our core range that are behind us. All three of them are on your website. So excited. I popped on this morning and they were all there. Pictures, descriptions, looks amazing. So again, so excited to have that out there. I have some friends in the UK and Glasgow that can now buy my whiskey. So yay!
Amazing. Yes.
Yeah. So this is our core lineup currently. We just last month released in the US, and this will come over to the UK hopefully next year, bottled and bond version of both our bourbon and our rye, and those are kind of hiding.
There we are. That's like a grand reveal, like you're on a game show.
Yeah, grand reveal. And so bottled and bond is a kind of a US tenet that basically means that it was 100% distilled in-house. It's at least 4 years old. It was all kept at the bonded distillery. Are you still hearing me right? I got a little pop up there.
Yep, no, I got you. We're good.
Yeah, so 100 proof, 4 years old. So we just released our first offering of those. They were 5 years old. They were distilled in spring of 2016. So a very limited release, about 1,000 6-packs of each. And we'll probably do that once a year. So that will be ongoing. Like I said, we're kind of limited our in-house capacity. So we're trying to figure out the best way to keep those as part of these blends and also introduce other things. So I'm looking forward to single barrel offerings from those. And then malt is a very dear place in my heart. So I've been sneaking about once a quarter. We do a week of different single malts and 100% malted barley. We have a malt house about an hour down the road from us that does 100% floor malt, grown in California. Just beautiful, rich malts.
Very cool. Very cool.
We're doing it this week, and in our production facility right now, whenever we do malt, people just kind of filter in from other departments because they're like, what is that amazing smell? And this stuff is really, it was malted, weeks ago. It was milled days before it's shipped. It's super fresh. And so I'm personally very excited to get a single malt out to market probably in the next year or two. And then, sky's the limit. We're looking at a new distillery, hopefully in a couple of years, where we can really increase our production and just have more whiskey available to more places and more people.
Oh my gosh, more whiskey to more places, to more people is the world we want to be in, I feel. So very quick question. I have a question, but I'm going to, we've got one from Julian here. Julian from 10 Locks. Big reveal there. When will we get these? So when are these other releases going to hit the UK?
Yeah, I figured Julian would ask. So that's a great question. We're hopefully next spring would be our next release. So this is kind of a semi-annual. Part of the bottle and bond tenet is the whiskeys can only be in a 6-month production window, and so that you're allowed January through June and July through December. Yeah. And so that's the only window you can blend in. So we're pretty constrained on what we can offer, but the hope is we do this twice a year and kind of slowly get it filtered out to more places.
Well, this is awesome. So my last question, and I'm very aware of time, but this is a good one and it's very timely. We've had some stuff in the whiskey press and the drinks industry news about American single malt getting a legal definition. Quick 60-second rundown from you and what you think about that. Is this a good thing, a bad thing? Are you excited about it, not excited about it?
I think it's a great thing. I'm very excited about it. I mean, we are doing things a little bit differently here, and I think it's important that we recognize that and also put some framework around that, because I think a lot of us distillers have been a little bit confused on what we can and can't do, and a little worried if we do this now, it's going to impact us 10 years from now, and then what do we do with all this beautiful whiskey that we made that now is not defined correctly? So I think for us as distillers, it does set this nice, guardrails that we can now produce to, and they're very open. They're very, very similar to what you all have, and I think it's going to be great. I mean, I think there's a lot of very fun single malts in the U.S. that people have been making for a number of years, and I look forward to the future.
I love it. Thank you so much. That's such a great response. I'm so interested in all of this. And just one more comment from Tom before we go. Great guests again. So lovely to hear their love for the water of life. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to zip Andy back in. Andy, how are you doing?
I'm better for having drunk this.
Amazing. Tell me your thoughts, please, because
I mean, for me, it does everything that I want a really nice, easy drinking bourbon to do. It's lovely kind of light caramel, vanilla, oak notes, a little hint of oak, and a little bit of spice coming from the rye. It's just really, really easy to drink, and it's really cool stuff. So looking forward to trying more Redwood stuff now it's here.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Amazing. And Jeff, are you able to hang around for a bit and join us again at the end for a quick?
I would absolutely love to. Yes.
Amazing. Fabulous. I'm going to zip you off for now, but we'll catch you again. So if you've got any other questions for Jeff, keep them up your sleeves for another sort of like half hour, 40 minutes or so. We'll catch you later. Thanks so much. Oh, how fantastic. Oh, my spirit's so lifted.
Yes. After having been in isolation, this is what you need, isn't it?
I know. My only downside now is that we've got 20 minutes to talk to each person. I can't. It's too little.
Thank you for that. We're not going to rush any guests.
Amazing. But speaking of rushing and moving forward, we do have 2 more guests for this evening. Yes. So
we can rush ourselves. Yeah. We're not going to rush our guests.
Not going to rush our guests, because we've got all kinds of awesomeness. So we've got Mike next from Craigellachie. Bring him in. Hello there, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, guys. How are you?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing so well. I'm so excited. This is a great lineup, and we've got another great guest with you.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed Jeff's chat there. He was getting geeky about fermentation. I was enjoying that.
Yes. Loving it. So tell us a bit about you, and I will promise I will not talk so much. We've got Andy here asking some questions as well. But Craigellachie is a bit of an iconic distillery, but we'll start with you first, and we'll talk about the distillery.
Absolutely. So I'm the UK ambassador for malts and Dures for Bacardi. So I get the joys of taking all of Stephanie McLeod's fantastic whiskies that she produces, and I get to bring them to people and talk about them. So that is one part of my job. I'm also based up here in Scotland as a trade ambassador. So I help the trade in terms of writing cocktail menus and developing their drinks and trainings and events, etc. like that. So I've been with Bacardi now for about 4 years. And prior to that, I was a bartender here in Scotland. I worked firstly in Aberdeen, which was where I fell in love with whiskey. We were so close to Speyside. We used to take summer camping trips up to Speyside and hit distilleries. And that's what really got me hooked on the whiskey. And then moved back down to Edinburgh and opened a couple of bars down here. And actually, probably I was an avid cocktail competition bartender. So I won the first ever global Patron cocktail competition back in 2017. So that kind of got me in the door with Bacardi, because at that time Bacardi were actually purchasing Patron. So I went on to work with Patron for the year after and help promote the competition around the world, and then got in the back door with Bacardi that way, which was fantastic.
So basically, you are a person for cocktails.
Well, I could be good, yeah.
Lucky you weren't here for our cocktail competition, because then I definitely wouldn't have won the cocktail competition.
I was wondering what you guys did differently with your old fashions.
Nothing. It was a very classic. No. It was a lovely. It was Brendan McCarran from Distilled, so he showed us how to make a kind of classic old fashioned, and it was wonderful. But
excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. So my background is mainly cocktails, but I've always had a passion for whiskey. So, and I actually really enjoy whiskey cocktails. I know it's a little bit sacrilege at times, but some of them are fantastic. And actually, Craigellachie works very, very well. The 13-year-old is great in cocktails. It makes a phenomenal pina colada.
Yeah.
Okay, you're gonna have.
I'm not. Pina colada is not my vibe. I do feel we're going on a tangent.
Okay, last bit of tangent. You're going to have to share that recipe so we can put it out on social for a Craigellachie pina colada. But anyway, back on track.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the distillery itself. So you're right in the heart of Speyside. It's a pretty iconic distillery, and it's kind of a bit savoury, meaty vibes, which is interesting.
Absolutely. Craigellachie was kind of old when we opened back in 1891. We decided that we wanted to do things the old-fashioned way, and since then we've continued to do it that way, and stuck to that I guess that mantra of creating a classic whiskey. There's nothing Speyside about Craigellachie, and mainly because, other than its location, in terms of its flavor profile, you know, if I put that in front of you, you wouldn't be saying, ah, this is a classic Speyside. And that's what's really good about Craigellachie, and it is all to do with the production of the whiskey that gives it such a unique flavor and flavor profile. I mean, you're getting your nose stuck right in there. So yes, we were established by two gentlemen.
We've lost Mike.
We've lost Mike. It's a good sign.
We've lost Mike. Oh no, this is terrible. Hopefully he'll come back.
Hi, Brendan. Brendan's just said the only old fashions I will have you know. He's here watching.
He's come back for more.
Come back for more.
Right, I'm going to take Mike off the screen for a sec, and hopefully you might get him back. But this is all good. Let me just have a little note for him. Andy, have you ever visited
Called Alexander Edward, another one, Peter
to be honest with
Mackey.
you, it's one of those distilleries that kind of, I was going to ask Mike, that, you know, we don't really hear all that much of as a single malt.
Well, we've got great news because Mike is back.
Nice, I'm back. Sorry, the internet can be a bit dodgy sometimes. Apologize.
No, it's fine. You left us on tenterhooks. You were talking about these two guys, and then we were like on the edge of our seats.
Okay, well, these two gentlemen essentially embody Craigellachie and what Craigellachie is. So Peter Mackey was a businessman of course of White Horse Blending from Glasgow, was involved with the establishment of Lagavulin and worked with Lagavulin. And he was very much a businessman. He was a pioneer for whiskey, very much keen on keeping age statements on whiskey and producing single malts. And then Alexander Edward was a bit more of a character. This gentleman who basically built Craigellachie town. He built the Craigellachie Hotel, if anyone's lucky enough to stay there, which is a phenomenal hotel. He also built 4 other distilleries and ran Ben Rinnes Distillery at the same time. So he was a very, very busy man. And he helped build that town of Craigellachie, make it a Victorian destination for holidays. And it was the way that these two men sort of pushed together that really Craigellachie epitomizes these two personalities, this wonderfully rich, full-bodied whiskey, which really these two gentlemen epitomize. So I guess where to start in terms of production would be the malting process for Craigellachie. We're very, very unique in the way that we still malt our barley. The maltings that we use is Glen Esk, just north of Montrose. And we use kiln number 2, and we're the only whiskey produced in that kiln. The reason why is because we use a little bit of peat and also a heavy fuel oil to fire the kiln. Now, this was very traditional back in the mid-1800s in the way to make whiskey. And slowly but surely, most whiskey companies have taken this step out. But Craigellachie is stuck to having that little bit of heavy fuel oil that goes into the kiln, which means no other barley can be dried out in there because it would affect the flavor of that barley as well. So we use kiln number 2, and we're the only whiskey that's made there. So that's the first real process that gives Craigellachie that very unique flavor. Then it's the fermentation process, and that's something that was very interesting, and I'm glad that Jeff was speaking about it earlier. It really gives Craigellachie quite a unique note. These fresh tropical notes. I get a pineapple off of it. 13-year-old is like a very, very young, fresh pineapple. 17-year-old, we're now looking at a bit more of a roasted pineapple note, or banana. And again, 17 is quite a young banana, probably on the green side of things. And the 13, and the 17 is a lot closer to a sort of banana bread, sort of older banana, really ripe banana flavor. And this all comes from the 50-hour fermentation process that Craigellachie has. So this little bit medium to long fermentation process builds up all these lovely acid notes, all these bright fruit tropical notes that when distilled really come through as esters in the whiskey. So these are the first 2 processes that give Craigellachie that unique flavor. If anyone has had a taste yet, it's quite a heavy whiskey. So we run a really slow distillation process. So the stills are run really, really slowly. And being Scottish, I like to say that they're short and dumpy, right? So if anyone doesn't know what dumpy means, they're just very small and fat, very, very big onion-shaped stills. And because of this slow distillation, we're getting a really heavy whiskey coming over there, right? All those oils are really pushing up over the still arm and into the worm tub condensers, which are what give Craigellachie its last flavorings into Craigellachie is the worm tub condensers. So one of 19 remaining distilleries in Scotland that still use a worm tub condenser. And this little contact with copper means that we've got this very, very heavy whiskey that comes out at the end.
Yeah. I feel like everything that you guys do is about keeping this weight, keeping this heaviness, keeping like all of this awesome stuff.
Yes. Yeah. The idea, and I think you hit the nail on the head right at the beginning, is that we have a big, meaty, chewy whiskey here, right? Beautifully complemented with that little sulfur note, gunpowder sort of taste from that. And then if everyone knows the classic pairing of ham and pineapple. And I think Craigellachie actually sort of hits that on the head. You've got those like real meaty notes. Well, with gammon and pineapple. Listen, as much as a lot of people don't like the idea of ham and pineapple on a pizza, unfortunately, the flavor compounds of ham and pineapple work very, very well together. So,
I was going to say, I'm having it's harking back to the World Cup final for me now. But Andy, I think you're going to read out some tasting notes, weren't you?
That's great. Because someone said Steve Coleman-Williams said cooked ham, subtle hint of pineapple with the definite presence of smoke, but only as a page 2 cast member. Pat Cowling, Christmas pudding and brandy butter. Mike Pizarro, I just had a Stilton palate cleanser, so my nose is a bit biased, but I'm getting umami, even mushrooms, with a question mark.
Definitely.
Joe F, the longer I smell it, the more I get hints of salted meat. This is a 17-year-old whiskey, so it should have that kind of, I would say, a minute in the glass for a minute in the cask. It should, I mean, it's helpful to kind of pour it and let it sit, because the older whiskies do take time in the glass to really open up, and those kind of notes will kind of start to come through the longer you leave it in the glass. Mike Pizarro, maybe some sherry-type fruitiness. We haven't talked about the cask that you use for this in the maturation process, but I mean, it's a really kind of, you get these kind of heavily sherried space ciders. It's really not like that. It's really a beautiful kind of undertone of sherry. You can see by the color as well, but I love it. It tastes more traditional for me. It's just like, this is exactly what I want from a kind of a single malt.
Absolutely. There is no sherry involved at all here. We're looking at European and American oak, basically. Be simply that. Same with the 13-year-old. It isn't classic Speyside in the terms of being with a little sherry finish, but you're still getting those subtle notes coming through, more probably from the American oak than anything else.
Absolutely. Almos can, very waxy and buttery. Guy CP, it's one that takes a little time. Exactly. Malcolm Tucker knows I'm getting apples and pear and weirdly a very light hint of smoky bacon crisps. Frazzles, anybody's. And Joe F, a real mix of sweet and savoury, but they blend together really well. David Stanton, palate, oak, pepper, nutmeg, licorice, and cinnamon. There are loads and loads of tasting notes here coming through with the talking. Jonathan Gumbrell takes a while for flavours to break out over time. Mike Pizarro, pork and apple. Perfect description. Gareth Peters, holy, this is lovely. Smooth the mouth, brilliant. Yum, yum, yum. Joe F, there's a bunch of citrus and raisins, coupled with the gentle salty peat in the background, very oily. I've not even tried it yet. Have you, Christy?
I've tried to try it, but as we know, I can't taste that much. So, but what I am getting with this is this very heavy, like texture vibe. Like you can tell, even if you're gone a bit nose blind like me, this is very different to a lot of the stuff that you kind of like normally get. It feels like a weighted blanket over the tongue.
Right, it's interesting. It's really quite interesting hearing what you're getting without any taste. It's quite interesting. I like this a lot.
It's so mad. I don't like it at all.
It's really,
me
it's a real experiment.
It is an experiment. Now, I have some questions for you, as I'm sure Andy does, as I'm sure everybody watching does. I have been lucky enough to go visit Craigellachie. I am obsessed with those worm tubs, right? They are absolutely massive. Have they always been that big? And are they unusual to be that big?
I believe they've always been the same. We only really changed them around about the close season, clean them up and fix them around about that season. Yes, and they start off pretty wide and they'll slowly but surely get smaller. But yes, I think they've always been that size, and that the idea, again, like we're saying, is this little copper contact. We want to keep all those heavy notes and all the oils in there. So by keeping the copper contact minimal, we're able to keep that mouthfeel. So yeah, I think they've always been like that.
So for anyone who's not seen pictures, we're talking like swimming pool scale pretty much here of the size of a condenser. Very, very different to the shell and tube, sort of very vertical, almost like a bit like a radiator type setup in a lot of distilleries. These are really, fairly unusual in the world of distilling.
Yeah, like we said, there's only 19 that remain in Scotland at the moment. I mean, one that I often talk about when I tell people about worm tubs and they ask, why do you do it and why do you have it, was Talisker. I believe Talisker removed their worm tubs and then they were unable to recreate the flavor of Talisker and put them back in, right? Because what they're doing is adding that mouthfeel, adding extra flavor, and it's impossible for us to get that flavor of Craigellachie without using the worm tub condensers. If you're ever lucky enough to get up there, it's quite high up on the distillery. It sits right behind the distillery and it's quite high up. And you look over the spey and you can see Macallan on the other side, which is quite a unique view.
Wave.
Yeah. So yeah, they are massive.
So Dan S is saying no sherry. So you said this is what were the costs again, just for everybody?
A European and American oak.
European
equal measures, yeah, equal parts. No sherry whatsoever.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Because there's some kind of like sultana notes that are coming through for me as well. So it's a really interesting one, but there's no sherry in it.
Okay, nice.
But there's like a kind of a wonderful, on the finish, that's kind of lingering around for me, this lovely kind of peanuts kind of note, almost peanut brittle kind of note, which is really, really tasty. Tom Gillingwater smells like a walk through a wet forest to me. Neil Bolton, this is really nice. Nigel Gain, honey taste, apple whiff, very pleasant, sophisticated whiskey. Rob Best, a hot dog. This is me too. Did not expect that at all. Perfect barbecue dram. Joe F. to get the banana on the palate with 3 drops of water. Jester, the legs on my glass are hardly dropping. El Sutton, this is beautiful dram. Wow, there are loads of notes coming through for this one. Steve Coleman, William Jelly Babies on the finish with smoky custard blanket. Smoky custard blanket. Big up.
I'm stealing that.
This is truly delicious. It's almost chewy. It's so thick. The ham and pineapple description for the flavour is spot on. Makes me think of a slow roast over a real fire. Super whiskey.
Yeah.
So, and lots of good notes coming for this one.
For me, we're coming into Craigellachie season. We're lucky here at John Juris and Sons that we have a wide range of whiskies, and you know, I try different whiskies at different times of the year, but we're beginning to get the late nights, the colder weather, and this whiskey just is perfect for that. It's sitting by the fire.
Yeah, so I mean, Craigellachie has the 13, the 17, is it 23 as well in the core lineup?
Yes, yeah.
It's not doesn't. I mean, it's very traditional for me. Even the bottles themselves, the labels are really traditional. No cask finishing, no kinds of interesting new kind of. It's like a proper old school distillery, and I love it.
Proper old school distillery. What you need to keep an eye out for Craigellachie is any exceptional cask releases that they bring out. Okay. So we brought one out for the Spirit of Speyside Festival that was online earlier this year, and it's still available to buy through the shop. But yes, Craigellachie has a lot of exceptional cask releases. We're very lucky, as I mentioned earlier, with Stephanie McLeod, who's our master blender for Jurs, but she looks after, obviously, all the aging processes with all the other whiskies. She won World's Best Blender 3 years ago. She was the first female to win it, and then has won it every year since, which is a pretty big accolade. And she has this unbelievable ability, of course, to smell a cask and say, right, no, this is an exceptional cask, and we're going to release this as one exceptional with one release. So definitely keep an eye out for it. There's also a lot of independent bottlings of Craigellachie that you'll see. A lot. So, yeah. But no, we stick to the main core range, the 13, the 17, 23, 31-year-old as well. The 31 won World's Best Whiskey. So good luck trying to get that.
High demand indeed.
It's not going to be in a 4 and 6 box anytime soon, guys. Really sorry to say.
Sad times. We've got a question coming from Steve Common Williams, who is asking about the barrels that are used in this again. When you say 2 barrels equal measures, is that a custom-made barrel with sort of the slats, I guess the staves? And do you move it from one barrel to the other during maturation?
Okay, so what I mean is they will be matured in those individual barrels for 17 years and then equally blended together, if that makes sense. Okay. So
it's a bit like, you could say, a cocktail. So they've not been like moved between barrels. You've got 50% one ingredient, 50% another ingredient, battered together, away you go.
Yes. Yeah. That's exactly how it's done. Yeah,
that's very cool. And I mean, what an amazing job Stephanie has to get to know all of these samples and figure out the vattings and work out what's going to go where and all of this.
exactly. And if you do get a chance, we've just released a new Royal Brackler range. Have a look out for that, because they're all sherry cask finished whiskies, but they're exceptional. A little bit higher ABV than what we had before, but this is definitely Stephanie's whiskies coming to maturation now. So keep an eye out for them as well.
Will do.
That's fantastic. Have you has Mike frozen us again? No, he's back.
No, he's here. He's here. But I think so. In the interest of time, are you able to hang around and come back at the end if we've got any more whiskey questions and cocktail questions?
Yeah, I would absolutely love to. With my
Fantastic.
pleasure.
That would be amazing, because this has been an absolute joy chatting with you. Thank you for persisting with your internet as well and coming back and joining us, because we were like, we need to hear the rest of the story.
No, a classic that didn't cut off at all until I start speaking. So, sod's law.
No, it's been amazing. Thank you for joining us. And for everyone watching, keep your Craigellachie questions, and we'll get Mike back towards the end and we'll geek out a little bit. So thank you so much. Thank you for sharing such a great time. Speak to you in a bit.
Right.
Fun.
Very aware at the time. We are really getting.
I know. I don't. This always happens on a pour and sip day. It's mad, absolutely mad. But we still have a whole extra dram to get through. And for anyone who's been hanging on to their smoky drams in anticipation, like, get me to the peat.
Where's the peat? Where's the peat? Yes.
Well, we can bring in Craig, and he can bring the peat with him. The peat party is here.
Hi guys.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. I am going to take my leave and leave you in Andy's capable hands, and I'm going to see if I can smell any peat. I'm very excited for this experiment.
This really will be the test for you, Christy, to really find how much you've lost your taste and sense and smell.
It will, but I'll catch up with you both in a bit. See you later.
Okay, bye, Christy. Hi, Craig. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks, Andy. I have to say, I'm admiring the some of the selection of whiskies you've got on the shelf behind you. I'm quite gutted, because tonight I'm actually in my friend's flat to present to you guys tonight, because my internet has gone down, and I was hoping to have my whiskey shelf behind me, like to kind of try and rival yours a little bit, but the powers that be have
Thank you very much. I have to say, I'm actually in the process of moving, so some of these shelves are actually empty. There's even more. But I'm kind of slowly taking the whiskey between houses, because I don't want to take it all in one. I don't want to put the whiskey in the van. It's way, way, way too precious. So I'm just kind of doing it very slowly. But thank you very much. So talk to us a bit about yourself and how you got into the industry and what you do for Black Bottle.
Certainly. So my story started over on the Isle of Arran, which is where I'm originally from. So I've noticed a couple of Arran bottles up on your shelf there, Andy.
The 21, one of my absolute favourite whiskies.
Brilliant. Yeah. So I mean, you're kind of born into Arran's not quite Islay when it comes to whiskey, but it's pretty big. But I was sort of born into the pub trade as well. I was the kid who was kind of handed around the bar while my mum was pouring pints for everyone. I remember actually Black Bottle being sold in the bar back when Black Bottle sold in a green bottle. So I got my kind of break into the whiskey industry with Douglas Lane, and I know you've had Cara and some of the team onto Pour and Sip, and then I've been working with Distill now for the last year. So Distill, in addition to Black Bottle, we obviously have a great lineup of distilleries in Bunnahabhain, Tobermory, and Deanston, and I'm the global brand manager for Black Bottle.
Wow, awesome. So talk to us a little bit about Black Bottle, because it's one of the oldest brands in Scotland of Scotch.
Yeah, and Black Bottle's kind of defined by this kind of really amazing story, which we still stay true to even to this day. So we have to go all the way back to 1879, wee history lesson. And
Here we go. Here we go. Tell us the story. We want to hear the story because it's a great story, so we really want to hear it.
It is a great story. So we go back to 1879, and the three Graham brothers moved to the sort of bustling port town of Aberdeen back in 1879 to sort of make their fame and fortune. And they found it very quickly, but as tea blenders. So they were kind of bringing in teas, putting them together and selling them out. But quite quickly, they kind of got a little bit bored from tea. So they wanted to turn their hand to something a bit more adventurous, a bit more dark, a bit more mystical. And so they looked to whiskey. So spearheaded by the eldest brother, Gordon, they started to kind of search around the local area for the best whiskies they could find to really make into something of a kind of unrivaled quality. Now, back then, the original product was actually called Gordon Graham's Special Whiskey Liqueur. But as a sort of marketing move back then, which being in marketing I can appreciate, they decided to package it in a black bottle as a way to kind of make it stand out from anything else on the shelf at the time. And in addition to this really kind of unconventional, kind of slightly smoky taste, they also had this really brilliant unconventional black bottle, and just kind of over time it began to become known as the black bottle whiskey. And so even now, today, kind of all these years later, as kind of if there's anyone who remembers black bottle back from when it was sold in a green bottle, we reverted back to this sort of more kind of traditional design a few years ago now. But that's still something that's very much part of us as a brand, as a group, is that sort of measure of unconventional in everything we do. We're not a brand that's just all about where we were all the way back in 1879. It's actually still very true to who we are today and kind of how we approach our whiskies.
But talk to us, because apparently, the actual product itself has changed flavour profiles quite a few times over the years.
Yeah, it's changed a little bit. I mean, if we go back to the very, very, very first black bottle, it would have been whiskies that were more from us around the sort of Aberdeen area, so sort of probably more sort of Speyside type whiskies. And over the years, it did change, and it took on quite a bit more of an Islay presence, but that's still true today. So Brendan McCarran, our master distiller, who I know is watching. Hi, Brendan.
He's watching.
He refers to black bottle as sort of being this greatest hits of Islay, and it's very, very true. I mean, we obviously there's certain kind of legalities about this, and we can't necessarily name every distillery that's in there, but it would be a who's who of Islay that's kind of sitting in the bottle.
Okay, so hold on. My baby monitor is going off, everybody. So hopefully someone turns that off very shortly. So sorry about that. I apologise in advance. So this, I mean, the black bottle itself, the blended Scotch. I'm going to ask you this question, then I'm going to turn it on. The blended Scotch is this is the Alchemy series. So the original, the black bottle you can buy now. This is a blend of what type of Scotch?
Sorry, do you mean the Island Smoke or the blend we have today?
The normal blend.
Yeah.
Core blend.
So the core blend we have today, we've two core black bottles in the range. We have the sort of original recipe black bottle, which is a blend of malts and grains from around Scotland. Quite unconventionally and uniquely, it's double matured in virgin oak casks, and that second maturation period takes about sort of 6 to 9 months. So it gives it quite a kind of unmistakable flavour. I personally think it works brilliant with tonic on a hot day. A black bottle and tonic. It's admittedly not for everyone, but there's just something that hits the spot about it. And you've still got that nice little that kind of that hint of smoke the whole way in, really, really central to the whiskey. We then have black bottle 10-year-old, which is pretty much the same recipe, but we're just leaving it that little bit longer, and you get through these lovely sort of smoking ember type flavours. So it's just that bit more refined, really, really lovely. And kind of coming into the Alchemy series, what we wanted to do with that is kind of really start kind of experimenting and sort of pay homage to this sort of alchemic type approach that the Graham brothers took. I mean, they actively kind of sought out new and kind of interesting ways. It was almost a bit of a dark art, this sort of quest for this sort of kind of elixir that would really kind of capture people's attentions. And what we're seeing now with whiskey drinkers, and I think Pour and Sip's probably a testament to this, is this sort of move away from being so defined by a category. We're seeing more kind of agnostic approaches to whiskey. So we don't necessarily see black bottle as being a blended Scotch whiskey. For us, as a whiskey, because that's how we know we're seeing more and more whiskey drinkers buy whiskey in that way. And so even tonight we've had a bourbon, we've had a single malt. Now we're on to a blended Scotch, but they're all whiskies and they're all just enjoyable and they all have their own place, and that's how we see kind of people drinking whiskey today, actively shopping for it. And so we're just kind of out here trying to kind of be true to who we are, but kind of keep pushing this sort of the boundaries of taste in the best way we can, kind of with a bit of as we see it, a sort of measure of the unconventional thrown in.
I think with the birth of social media and the amount of online presence there is about whiskey these days, YouTube, Instagram, everyone really wants to learn about it, and that's why pour and sip and stuff like that is so popular at the moment, and people just really want to kind of explore something. So it's like the kind of people are just so much more informed than they were, and they really want to try new stuff and unique stuff, and they really want to kind of explore their palate, and I think that's an amazing thing, really, to be honest with you.
And Andy, that's exactly what we've kind of sought to do is to create 2 whiskies here within the Alchemy series that really kind of push the boundaries of taste quite a little bit, and that's kind of within just as a brand Black Bottle what we'll sort of keep aiming to do.
Sounds great. So talk us through this one. What are we trying here today? The Isle of Smoke series.
So yeah, so in here I've poured my own. So Island Smoke. Island Smoke. I mean, we talk about this idea. You know, you said it earlier of a year in the cask, a minute in the glass. Island Smoke really benefits from that little bit extra longer in the glass. You'll really get a lot more of the smoke coming out. But really, at its core, what we've got in there is a 1984 blended malt, and then we have some other components kind of woven around it. So what we really wanted to capture here was kind of some really kind of beautiful, stormy, seasidey, smoky island malts, and then marrying them with some much kind of softer, sweeter mainland grain whiskies. And what we get is this, and I'm sure kind of everyone's kind of going through this kind of process just now as you are, Andy. You get this really great balance of this kind of really kind of maritime-y, smoky peatedness, but then it's got, when you get into tasting it, it's got this sort of beautiful sweetness underneath it. It's almost like a kind of almost like a salted caramel moving into almost like a crunchy nut cornflake type note, or like a sort of cereal vanilla, I guess.
Yeah.
It's something that's a bit more accessible.
It's, yeah, I mean, the nose is this really kind of like nutty kind of caramel, like you're saying, but this kind of smoked meat kind of peat, and then that kind of salinity you're getting from that kind of island kind of peat. It's just really wonderful nose. I'm not going to try it just yet because I'm going to read out the amazing amount of tasting notes that we got, because I'm going back here to Jonathan B. Bring on the smoke. Green tea is green. Here's the peat. Ian Jambo Rain saying, if anyone ever visits the Ormadale Hotel in Arran and sees an old boy playing accordion, that's Jim, and he loves a Black Bottle and loves a dram being bought for him.
He does.
And he does. Yeah, okay, fine. Mike Pizarro, wow, good luck topping the last 2 drams. Then again, I do like a bit of peat. Joe F, we're back on the Arran thing here. Saw my first ever Golden Eagle in Arran. My favourite cheese is there from there too. Anyway, Steve Coleman Williams, the smoke really powers through on this. This one's bliss with a nutty caramel scent to it. Pat Cowan, bonfire night and tarry palates being burnt on the nose. El Sutton just loving that peat. Jonathan B loving the amount of sweetness alongside the smoke, and that's what you're saying is this kind of complexity of balancing those kind of 2 aspects together, essentially. And that's kind of the art of the blending.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a testament to the spirit team. So what you've actually got in here is a really high malt content, we're up about sort of 50% malt in this, which is kind of very high for a blended Scotch.
Yeah.
It's a real testament to our spirit team. So obviously we've got Brendan on the call here. We've also got our master blender Julianne Fernandez. So I believe she's possibly if not the youngest, one of the youngest master blenders in the world. She turns 30 this month.
We don't want to be a master blender when we're saying.
Although I will say, working as a brand manager and having Julianne kind of answering the briefing coming to you and being like, what do you think of this is a pretty close second. But yes, the whiskies she gets to try probably are quite incredible.
I can really imagine.
Yeah, but it's a real testament to the spirit team we have at Distill and kind of what they've put into this. And what like I said earlier, what we've really started to do is kind of try and push the boundaries of kind of what people would expect a little bit. So we've got Island Smoke here. The other expression we have, double cask, which is also available in Master of Malt, just to throw that in there. Wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't. Is a marriage of 12-year-old grain matured entirely in red wine casks with malt finish and sherry casks. So it's on a very different level, kind of very experimental, very sweet, kind of very fruity. Obviously, this, if I had to kind of try and personally place the occasion for this, it's like sitting on a beach, bonfire, sunset, tides rolling in, you get that seaweed in the air, and for me, what Island Smoke captures is kind of not just that in a glass, but there's also something kind of a bit darker in there, a bit more kind of like this kind of giving that anticipation of the storm to come, almost, I guess.
Absolutely. You just painted the most beautiful picture there. I mean, I was literally imagining myself there drinking this dram in that exact moment. I totally get what you're saying. I'm going to just go through a few more. Jonathan B. Black Bottle Tonic, WTF. Malcolm Tucker, after getting through the smoke, I have some leather with caramel. El Sutton, there's definitely caramel and chocolate notes on the palate. Ian Jambo, and can't stop smelling this. It is beautiful, soothing. Absolutely. I find like super peaty stuff like this really, really soothing. I don't know what it is. I don't turn around and go, whoa. It's just like, I just find it warming. And like you said, it's just moments that it brings me to. For me, it's like just by the fire or something like that. And this is one of those drams that really take me. They're really dark and kind of just, I don't know, this is a cold, wet night whiskey for me. Mike Pizarro, it's quite a subtle nose for peated whiskey. You get some ocean and some smoke, of course, on the nose. Green tea is green. Black Bottle nose seem to touch antiseptic, but on the tongue, it's wonderfully rich and chocolatey with peat, of course. Alistair Teff had me intrigued at the beginning, being a non-Isla fan, but the medicinal notes win through in the end. Not for me, this one. That's the thing with peated whiskey. We're always going to find some people who are, it's just not their bag, and that's totally fine. Though we have really changed a few opinions here on Pour and Sip when it comes to smoky whiskey. Steve Common Williams, not Steve Common whiskey. Charred Earth, a la just after a Gore's fire with salted caramel taste for me. El Sutton's is very nice. Can't believe the price. Alice Khan, with this price, my absolute favourite for peated whiskey. And don't forget, you'll get the members discount in the Pour and Sip store, so even better price. Rob Besser smells like a cigar-laden conversation at 3 a.m. in leather armchairs. So that's another wonderful painting. There are so many tasting notes coming through. Sorry, Tom Gillingwaters just asked a question. Is this blend, or we kind of discussed this, is this blend all only or distill malts only?
So we can't really kind of say, I guess, is the official answer. But we do only have one Isla distillery within Distill. So when we talk about Black Bottle being the greatest hits of Isla, there might be some extra. This is the
man who's answered that question. Bruce Edwards, always interesting to hear from distillers and learn about whiskey. You learn more than trying a few different drams down the pub. Absolutely, 100%. David Stanton, palate salted caramel, best smoky barbecue ribs you have ever tasted. Jester, this has gone into my basket along with the Redwood. Jester, and after 20% discount with my points, what's not to like? Neil Bolton, Beach, Fire, and this sounds good. I am totally aware of the time, so I do think it's time to bring back Christy and the others to finally discuss. But thank you so much, Craig, for coming and tasting this one with us.
Well, thanks.
Thank you so much, Craig. That was so interesting to listen to. And again, on the texture piece, this is very different to the other two again. Less weighted blanket, more like a slight sort of spice prickly thing on the finish. But yeah, I can't wait to taste it properly.
I mean,
going to bring back Jeff as well, and also Mike.
Hi guys.
It's the dream team. How's everyone doing?
Thirsty.
Yeah, good.
I want to taste all those scotches. They sound amazing.
Yeah, it's such a shame that we can like whisk a box over to you as well. I think within the UK we can do it, but outside the UK we can't always. And it's heartbreaking.
Me too.
Yes, I think just in time for you guys to get your answers in before we start talking. It's that time of the evening again where we're going to ask you which one was your favourite out of the three that we tried tonight. Our guests will not be offended, whichever one you say, because they are totally and utterly different whiskies. So it's kind of whatever your bag is. So let us know what one you preferred tonight, and then we'll read out your favourites.
Definitely. Now, there was a question from earlier when we were chatting with Jeff that came through just as we were leaving that I want to put to all three of you, actually. This is along the lines of like regulation in whiskey and whether it constrains innovation, whether like how much it influences future planning, how much this legislation can change. Just really interesting to get your take on that, because in Scotland, it's kind of gone the other way where I think it was 2019, some of the rules were relaxed a little bit around casks. And in the US, you guys are just about to introduce some single rules legislation as well. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to we'll go to you first, maybe Mike, like your take on this whole area.
Do you know, honestly, I'm really glad in 2019 that we changed the legislation here in Scotland. I think what it was a change from traditional oak to just oak. And this word traditional meant that we weren't able to do in the innovation that we're seeing in other whiskies around the world. Teeling's was a perfect example, right? Teeling's went on to win World's Best Whiskey. Some of the stuff that they were doing and producing was just phenomenal, but here in Scotland, that wasn't allowed. I think if anyone remembers Glenmorangie when they did a cider cask, and then, yeah, it was just...
Oh, yes, we've
discussed
had
that on this very show. I was going to call it a show there. We discussed on this very live tasting.
So yeah, I think what this now allows us to do is to see new innovation and great new whiskies coming out. For example, Dewar's have just released an 8-year-old blend that's finished in mezcal cask. I believe Kilcoman have done the same. And these are the first sort of whiskies that are finished in mezcal. And it's just a really interesting take. And we're getting new flavors and new flavor profiles within our whiskies. So I'm all for it. I'm also all for the American change as well, where they can use the barrels more than once would be a nice thing in America. So.
Yeah, what's your take on that, Jeff? The idea of bourbon producers using barrels more than once?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely excited for it. We've seen as well the finishing craze, so to speak, is happening, and we're doing quite a bit of that as well ourselves. But as far as primary goes, we're still pretty restricted on having to use new virgin American oak for that primary phase, and it'd be nice to see some more flexibility around that. I know there's some projects that we've done on the side and some more that I'd like to play with that we're unfortunately a little bit restricted still, but that's just kind of the way it goes. And there's other ways around that. We can, and we do produce, under the larger classification of whiskey as opposed to bourbon and rye. And that allows us to do some different things with oak and treatments and whatnot.
Yeah.
So can I ask, do you mind if I ask?
Yeah, go for it.
Anything in particular that you have played around with that you've been like, this is phenomenal?
I mean, so we're a winery as opposed to a distillery. So we have access to some beautiful wine barrels, and we are releasing a very small release that we do annually of a 14-year bourbon that's finished in a Chardonnay cask. Nice. And it's a hard sell for bourbon drinkers because bourbon and Chardonnay don't necessarily go hand in hand, but I think they're really fun together because you get this beautiful fruit of the Chardonnay together with the just rich, chewy, leathery texture of a 14-year bourbon. And that one's pretty special. So I like that one a lot.
That sounds great.
I wish we had more access to sherry and some of the other things that are just really hard to find right now.
Mm.
Yeah, Craig, I was going to ask you from your perspective, sort of sourcing different casks for blending, how have you seen, or do you see barrels kind of change over time as not just regulations change, because that's a bit of a slower thing, but as like fashion in whiskey changes and different styles are more popular at different times? Is that something that you notice when you're going back through your archives?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I noticed that more as a drinker. I mean, the reason I personally got into the whiskey industry was because I loved being on the other side of it as a customer, and wanted to kind of get into it. But yeah, I kind of see that, and I think where there was a phase where there was particular casks, and there becomes like the in-fashion cask that everyone wants to do, like Mizunara being kind of one that jumps to mind, and everyone wants to do Mizunara. And personally, kind of, as long as we can keep people informed about what we're doing, I'm all for kind of giving us more casks to play with. And yes, I'm slightly biased in saying that because with Black Bottle, that's actively kind of what we look out for is new and kind of interesting ways we can kind of, as I keep saying, kind of push the boundaries of taste. So I think kind of come back to the original question is that the more we can go and play and have fun with and create amazing whiskies with, in my opinion, the better, just as long as we can sort of do it in a way that means that we're not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes as drinkers. Transparency is
the biggest thing in the whiskey. It's about transparency as well as being innovative and trying new things. It's all about transparency because, like we were talking about earlier, the average whiskey drinker is becoming much more informed than they ever were. So transparency is really important because it is harder to pull the wool over people's eyes nowadays.
As it should be. We don't want no wool pulling.
I'm just going to go through because everyone has just jumped straight into the...
Oh my gosh, yes, so many comments.
Jonathan, Black Bottle, so that's been ordered already. He says, Alistair Taff, Craigellachie, the winner by Country Mile for him tonight. Loves it so much he's wrote the same comment twice. That might be Jake on the other end. James Allen, Black Bottle all the way, but I'm a smokehead. Simon, Black Bottle for me. Dan S. Craigell, that's his nickname there for the distillery. Pat Cowling, Black Bottle order. Jeffster, Redwood, because I don't usually go for bourbon. That's the exact thing that we do here at Pour and Sit. Usually people don't go for bourbon. Then suddenly tonight, bourbon's his favourite out of the pick of the bunch. Joe F, Redwood Empire, 9 out of 10. Pesho, the Redwood. Christopher Hines, Black Bottle, love it. Oliver Butterworth, Redwood for the win. L Sutton, Black Bottle, love the peat. Steve Coleman Williams, Black Bottle, 100%. Craigellachie, second. Bourbon, not yet converted, I'm afraid. So there was one we couldn't convert today. Richard Wingrove would have to say the Redwood today. Christy, do you want to take over some of the others? There's absolutely tons here.
Yeah, I know. I've been trying to keep up. Where did it say with not the Redwood today? Right, Jonathan Gumbrel. He's gone for Redwood. That was his favourite. Almos just placed an order for Black Bottle. Absolute win if considering the price. Joe F has given both Craigellachie and Black Bottle 8.5 out of 10. Good scores, good stores. Dave, Black Bottle for me. Peter, like them all, but the Black Bottle just pips the other two as far as I'm concerned. Matt Barrington, 3 great whiskies. Black Bottle wins it for me. Rob Bester, I'm such a fan of smoke, but the Redwood is well balanced and the biggest surprise for me. SW Tractor Boy, Black Bottle for me. Green tea is green. Black Bottle for me. Peat and chocolate, what's not to like? Guy, CP, Craigellachie 17, the complexity just draws me in. I want to give it my time. Almost again, Craigellachie is really nice though, well-balanced flavour and complexity. Mike Pizarro, Craigellachie, Redwood, Black Bottle on that order, but what a fantastic selection. Jim, all 3 very good, but I think Redwood Empire just comes in as best, and I'm not usually a bourbon fan.
Second person.
Huh?
Second person to say that.
Second person, yeah. Bob Gardner, difficult choice as usual, but going to go Black Bottle. But 3 great whiskies, thanks guys. Nigel Gain, 3 very contrasting whiskies, impossible to pick a favourite. Nigel, you've got no excuse, sort yourself out. You've got to choose. Chloe Moss, got all 3 in our basket. Got some super whiskey tonight. Again, I'm seeing a get out clause there, but we'll let you off because you put your money where your mouth is, literally. Neil Bolton, Craig or Black Bottle, edge it, but Redwood also great. Black Bottle price makes it a no-brainer. L Sutton, great selection of drams tonight. And then we've got a question. Craig, who took the whiskies off the banister or did they fall? Love the painting.
For me?
Don't know.
I think she was me. Yeah, I brought them down.
Oh, yeah.
You took them down.
Got the wrong person. That's mine.
Pretty precarious, this, isn't it?
To be honest, I felt like that was just one turn like that, and there's nothing in there. I can say.
Yeah, they're definitely empty. They're just shells.
Props, everybody. Calm down. No whiskey was injured in the making of today's Pour and Sip live tasting.
Yeah, I'm not that reckless.
Got to keep the whiskey safe at all times.
Exactly. Another question. I don't think that it's Steve Coleman Williams asking Jeff. Jeff, any bourbon you'd recommend to convert me? Oh, I can't see just because the last bit of that comic. Have you got these?
Own brand is totally welcome. # open-minded.
There's so many out there. That's tough. I do love Four Roses a lot. That's obviously a pretty big brand. And that one, I love that they have a laser focus on. They really just focus on bourbon. But then they have these really cool twists where they do different yeast and slightly different, proprietary things, but they're super laser focused on bourbon. I think they do an amazing job.
Yeah.
Any of the Four Roses, the small batch releases, the special releases yearly are absolutely incredible. The 2015 anniversary release is one of the best whiskies I've ever tried, and it's absolutely amazing. So highly recommend if you can get your hands on any of those when they are released.
For sure.
I'm going to throw in Angel's Envy as well in there. They do some really good cast finishing with Angel's Envy. So I'm going to throw that one in as well.
Yeah, great one.
Craig, any top bourbons for you?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm still very early on my bourbon journey, to be honest, so I wouldn't want to throw it out. But I do have a bottle of Buffalo Trace at home, which makes a really, really good old-fashioned.
Yeah. Buffalo Trace is awesome. I'm going to go for, this is slightly trickier to get nowadays, but Blanton straight from the barrel, slightly higher proof, absolutely delicious. So good.
I've got the gold here, but it's gone to the other house already, unfortunately, for the straight from the barrel. I don't think we'll ever get Blantons on Pour and Sip, unfortunately, because it's impossible to get it just in general in this country.
What about you, Andy? Complete the bourbon round table.
Jeff was talking about kind of single malts and like kind of American malts, and I think Balcones are doing some amazing thing. Their Texas single malt is absolutely incredible, and their Blue Corn Texas corn whiskey is just one of my absolute favorites. But Four Roses is definitely for me. They're just like for me. It's just like if I could recommend a bourbon to anyone, it's just either the single barrel or the small batch Four Roses as kind of their entry level whiskey and bourbon.
All great stuff.
Oh, we've done.
I did. Yeah, didn't we already? Yeah. Don't know what he's on. Anyway, this has been such a joy this evening. I have absolutely loved it. We've got even more comments coming in. It's difficult to keep up with everybody. So we've got one final question to round up, asking about social media accounts. So this was to Mike asking about cocktail recipes, but if everyone wants to shout out their social media handle, that's probably useful because I'm sure people want to hear more from you.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, feel free to message me on social media. We can send you over some recipes. So my handle is just Mike_McGinty. Very, very simple. And then you see me really awkwardly trying to make a cocktail as a profile picture. So that is me. So you'll see that. Yeah. So Mike_McGinty.
Awesome. What about you, Craig?
So if anyone wants to follow me, I post a lot that isn't whiskey based. So if you want some other crack thrown in, you can find me at CSJ Black as one word, or go follow Black Bottle Whiskey.
Amazing. No obligation, obviously, but Jeff as well. If people want to come and hang out with you online, where can they find you?
Yeah, Redwood Empire Whiskey is our handle. I'm slowly navigating this new world of social media. I've got a 14-year-old, so he's helping me, but that's where we hang out. You're
going to be at the cutting edge of all things social for sure, with a 14-year-old on your side.
Yeah, I'm at London Whiskey Guy, as you all should know, hopefully by now. Christy.
I'm just Christiana Sherry. I've got no imagination here whatsoever. But there we go. Awesome. This has been...
And follow us at Pour and Sip. That's the main thing. If you're not following us at Pour and Sip, please follow us at Pour and Sip, and follow all Pour and Sip social channels on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter.
Exactly. I mean, what are you doing if you're not? That's where you get all the latest news, views, digest stuff, sneak peeks. And just to say as well, if you've missed any of the live tasting sessions, you can watch them back. And I'm going to be watching this one back because I'm going to taste along as soon as I can again. And this has been such fun this evening. Thank you so much to our guests. You've been incredible, all three of you. It's been such a joy to chat and listen in. And thank you to everybody for getting involved. We had so many tasting notes and questions. It's literally impossible to keep up with you all, but thank you for being so involved.
Yes, and thank you for everyone, because we've gone well over our usual 1 hour allocation. So thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in and sticking with us. And we will see you in a couple of weeks to try the last 2 drams of the box.
Yeah, the 21st. And you may or may not have me from the IWC Awards. We'll see how that goes. Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. Raising a glass to our amazing guests. And thank you to everyone for tuning in.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care, all. Bye.